One of the reasons sexual assault is such a problem in our society is that we're all raised with misconceptions about it. It's not your fault. It's society's fault. But you need to know the truth. For instance,
how would you describe a guy who likes sex, has frequent sexual activity, and many partners?
Player.
A regular guy.
A normal guy.
A player, like he's the man.
Most guys want to be like that in college, I guess.
Girls will call him maybe a man whore, but his guy friends are going to be like, oh, he's such a winner, he's so good.
So what about a woman who has frequent sexual partners or is open about her sexuality?
Slut, whore. A hoe. Sluts or whores.
A slutty person.
It's a slut. Excuse my language if I'm allowed to say that. Because it's not as morally right for girls to have as many partners as guys.
Or slut, or tramp.
Slut.
A slut.
A slut.
Slut or a whore.
Or tramp.
Easy.
Why are the sexual choices of men and women treated so differently?
I couldn't tell you why. I honestly don't know why. It's just always been like that.
When guys do it, it's considered good, and when girls do it, it's considered bad. It's double standard. I don't really know.
I think it goes back to the misogynism of old times. It's definitely based in sexism.
I don't know, and it personally makes me really angry. I get really upset when people are like, oh, she's a whore for maybe having 2 sexual partners, and then a guy will maybe have like 5 or 6, and there's no negative connotation towards him.
So, our language generally praises men who have a lot of sex, while slut-shaming women who do the same. Also, a lot of men feel unneeded pressure from society to have sex with a lot of women as a way to prove their manhood, to prove they're players, or even to prove they aren't gay.
Another part of the problem is the media. The media is getting better, but it still gives false impressions about rape, making it seem as though it's typically committed by a stranger, that it usually involves a weapon, and that it usually includes violence on top of the sexual nature of the assault.
How would you describe the stereotypical rapist?
Big guy, mustache, cut off shirt, mean eyes.
Really creepy serial killer rapist.
They just got this stare and they just sit there instead, lurking like an alley.
Mental people who go around raping strangers in alleys.
Well, I would say on TV they portray it as someone you don't know just coming up on you and like the creepy old guy or whatever, but I feel like in reality most sexual assault victims know their attacker, and that's just not at all what TV portrays.
Although it's starting to change, rapes on crime dramas too often show rape committed by a stranger, a lot like the descriptions you just heard, but reality is very different.
And he said, I want to bring you into my room and show you all of my artwork. I have my artwork all over my walls, and I can't bring you everything, so just come take a look at it. I went into his bedroom with him, and as soon as I got into his bedroom, he slammed the door behind me, locked it, he pushed me onto the bed, he got my pants off within seconds, and he pushed himself inside of me. I could tell it wasn't the first time he had done something like this because of the way he positioned himself on me. He knew exactly where to put his knees on my knees so I couldn't move, same with my elbows. But when he walked me home, we were walking down a tree-lined street, and he pushed me up against one of the trees and tried to kiss me, and I pushed him away and said no, and he just changed, and he grabbed the back of my head, and he threw me on the ground, and he put his hand up my dress. I was so scared. I thought I was fine, and suddenly I wasn't.
And I wasn't much of a partier or drinker, but I went to a small off-campus party with some trusted friends, and I ended up passed out on the couch, and I woke up basically to being assaulted by someone I had felt was a good friend that I had known since I was a freshman. I pushed him off. He scurried away. For a few days, I skipped classes. I fell into a deep depression.
About 90% of sexual assaults are committed by someone the victim knows, such as a classmate, friend, or even a boyfriend or girlfriend. So what does this mean? It means too many people grow up thinking if the attacker didn't wear a mask and doesn't have a weapon, it wasn't really sexual assault. Or if it was sexual assault, it wasn't that bad. Well, not anymore. The truth is that all sexual assault is sexual assault, and that the psychological consequences of being attacked by someone we trust can actually be worse than being attacked by somebody we didn't know. Because we tend to limit conceptions of sexual assault to something more like the stranger in the ski mask with the knife, we tend to consider other kinds of sexual assault to be closer to sex. But sexual assault is never sex. The fact that sex can be enjoyable does not mean that forced sex can be enjoyable. Check this out.
Hey, Bob, have a cheeseburger.
No thanks, Dan. Not in the mood right now.
But you like cheeseburgers.
No, I love cheeseburgers. I just don't want one right now.
Why not?
What difference does it make?
But I really want you to have the cheeseburger.
Hello, I really don't want it.
Well, I think you should.
But you're not me.
Look, you're gonna like it once you start eating it.
Dude, no.
Eat the cheeseburger.
What's the matter with you?
What's something you like to eat or do? Would you like it if you weren't in the mood? Would you like it if someone forced it on you? What Dan did to Bob wasn't helping Bob eat a healthy meal. Because Dan didn't have Bob's consent, he was assaulting Bob, and the weapon, even though it might sound silly, was a cheeseburger.
But the weapon doesn't matter. The violence does. Forced sexual activity isn't sex. It can't be sex, because sex, by definition, is consensual. Forced sex is assault. It's violent. It's rape. But because we associate sexual assault with sex, some people think that assaulted sex can be enjoyed. We ask you to consider 2 more lessons from this example.
The first is the myth that some sexual assault victims, mostly women, have consensual sex and then call it sexual assault afterwards. Sexual assault isn't sex any more than what Bob did was eat a nice meal. Associating sexual assault with sex is just wrong. The second myth is that it's up to the victim to resist, which is like saying it was Bob's fault he was assaulted because he didn't stop Dan from forcing the cheeseburger on him. If Dan tried to force the cheeseburger on Bob, it's assault. If Dan uses a cheeseburger, a club, a hand, or a sexual weapon, it's assault. Bob can't be blamed for getting assaulted. It's Dan's fault 100%.
What we're asking you to consider here is that you've been taught by our culture to think of sexual assault either as involving an armed stranger or as something not that different from consensual sex. But do you have to think that way? Not anymore.